Hi class, in this recording we're going to start diving in and talking about the brainstem, and specifically the medulla oblongata and the pons. So as we look at the medulla oblongata, that is the most, the most primitive, most inferior, or caudal part of the brain. As we look at this region of the brain, it's going to be located right at the opening of the foramen magnum. So you can imagine if I had a circle right there, there would be the foramen magnum within the occipital bone, and it's going to extend rostally or towards the forehead about 3 centimeters. And in terms of differentiating where it begins in a dissection, the medulla oblongata and the spinal cord is pretty tough to look at and differentiate on a dissection. It's very slightly wider on the spinal cord, ever so slightly. Now, as we look at the medulla oblongata, it's going to have some pyramids. And these pyramids are going to be some ridges on the anterior surface. So there's the pyramids. Let's shift colors here. We have one right here and the other one right there. And those two ridges on the anterior surface of the medulla oblongata are right hugging the mid-sagittal planes, and they are anteriorly located. They're separated by a structure known as the anterior median fissure. We also are going to have 4 pairs of cranial nerves that begin or end at the medulla oblongata. Cranial nerves 8, 9, 10, and 12. Finally, we also have some olives. These are prominent bulges lateral to each of the pyramids. Let's shift colors here. And those olives are located right here and right there. Now, as we look at within the medulla oblongata, we have a cross-sectional slice right here of the medulla oblongata. We have ascending and descending fibers. So these ascending fibers are carrying sensory information to the higher brain functions. Descending is carrying motor signals away. And all these fibers are going to pass through the medulla oblongata. We also are going to have neurosomas, or cell bodies of second-order sensory neurons housed within the medulla oblongata. Those pyramids that are on the anterior portion of the medulla oblongata are going to carry motor signals to skeletal muscles. The olives, and let's switch colors to green, so those olives that are lateral to the pyramids are going to contain an inferior olivary nucleus, and this is a relay center for information that's being sent to the cerebellum, or the little brain. We also have the reticular formation. That reticular formation is a loose network of nuclei, and in case you forget, within the context of this presentation, a nuclei is a group of neuron cell bodies, a group of neurosoma within the central nervous system. So we have a loose network of basically gray matter that extends throughout the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the brainstem. And if we look at our figure here, the reticular formation is here and here on the left and right sides of the medulla oblongata. Note, because they're nuclei or cell bodies of neurons, they are gray matter, not white matter. And these reticular formation, or the reticular formation, is going to contain cardiac centers, vasomotor centers, and respiratory centers. In other words, a lot of really important aspects of our body that are controlled automatically, which we need to stay alive. So what's the take home here? If there's a stroke or some kind of a cardiovascular event that occurs within the medulla oblongata, generally speaking, most people don't live through that because of the super important functions that are maintained by the medulla oblongata. As we look at the pons, our pons is an anterior bulge. So here's our pons right here. That's going to be on the anterior portion of the brainstem, rostral to the medulla. So it's going to be closer to the forehead relative to medulla oblongata. Within the pons, we have the cerebellar peduncles. These cerebellar peduncles are going to connect the pons and the midbrain to the cerebellum proper, and they're much easier to see within the midbrain, or they're located fairly easily on the midbrain. Within the pons, they're a little bit more difficult to see. Our pons is going to carry information to the cerebrum. It's going to carry information away from the cerebrum. And there's also going to have some pathways that are going to move within and out of the cerebrum. As we look at the pons, it's going to have cranial nerves 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all going to originate with the pons. As we look at these cranial nerves, we have some sensory roles of them. The cranial nerves responsible for hearing, equilibrium, taste, and facial sensations are located at the pons. The cranial nerves responsible for eye movement, facial expressions, chewing, swallowing, urination, and secretion of saliva and tears are also located at the pons. The reticular formation that begins the medulla oblongata is going to continue rostrally or towards the forehead through the pons, and will have some nuclei or regions of gray matter that help to regulate sleep, our respiration, so how quickly we breathe in and out, and also our unconscious posture. That's all we have for this recording. If you have any questions about the medulla oblongata or pons, please feel free to post them in the class discussion boards or shoot me an email. Happy studies.